Last year, I had helped a client sell their house and move out of PA. In the beginning of this year, I had another client do the exact same thing. Let's talk about why. Hi, I'm Irelyn, and thanks so much for coming by the Living in NEPA channel, where we talk about what it's like to live, move, and invest here in Northeast Pennsylvania. We are also a team of realtors and would love a chance to earn your business, so please give us a call, text, or email anytime. Our phone number and email are right there on the screen. So in the past 6 months, I have had to help 2 different clients sell their homes here and move out of state. One of those clients was moving down south to retire and, kind of be in that warmer weather. Also just didn't really like the cold that much here. And I actually had a younger client of mine sell her home and move to New York City to actually pursue her career more, to be in a better position for better opportunities for herself. And also she didn't really like the fact that she had to drive around everywhere. So this got me thinking on some of the reasons why you probably should not move to PA, and you should probably be okay with most of these things if you're going to be living here. So let's talk about number one. The number one reason I personally think is the reason why people move out of state is because of the job industry here. I wanted to talk about this first because it's usually one of the top reasons on why people move away. When it comes to employers, there isn't really one particular employer that dominates the rest. Our area used to be really dominant in coal mining, and that was one of the original reasons why a lot of people wanted to actually move to this area. Now you have the typical business, management, and medicine that usually takes up the majority, and that's what a lot of people talk about here. It's not really overly dominant in our particular area, usually just certain areas like Scranton and Wilkes Barre. If you're looking for jobs in the Poconos, it's mostly going to be a tourism and service industry there, unless you're looking to be remote or commute. But other than that, there's not one single industry that simply just dominates the rest, which I don't know how that's going to affect the area in the years to come, but hopefully something like that will evolve within the next couple years. Number 2 is the cold and hot seasons. I've seen quite a few people move somewhere warmer. Our cold season can get pretty cold, and sometimes we have heavy snowfall that people just don't like. People don't like the maintenance of it. The cost of utilities in the winter is pretty high, especially if you have kind of like poor insulation. Some houses are built like super old, so some of them have like little to no insulation. It can get pretty cold and run up your heating bill. You might have to use like electric space heaters. A lot of people have pools here because we aren't really that close to the beaches, so if you have a pool, your water bill in the summer is going to be high, along with the cost of pool supplies. So that's usually another factor also when it comes to kind of making the decision to move out of PA, especially if you're moving from a place that doesn't really get a lot of snow or doesn't really have a lot of cold temperatures. So it's kind of wishy-washy when it gets into merging from winter to spring. Those cold and hot seasons do come into play when it comes to your, lifestyle expenses, because it takes a toll on your car and your car maintenance, your utilities, if you have a pool, and just kind of like affect, your everyday lifestyle. Number 3 is car dependency. You have to have a car to get around in this area. Everything is pretty scattered. There's not really a part of NEPA where you can just leave your house, walk to a downtown area, and kind of spend your time there finding things to occupy and take up your day. If people are walking somewhere, it's for a specific reason. We do have public transportation though that people can use and take those routes to different parts of the area. And we also have like Uber and Lyft, but the majority of people in this area do have cars. Number 4, wells and septics. So I'm gonna make a different video, kind of go into more detail and break down what wells and septics actually are and how they affect you and your property. In short, a well is basically your own private source of water going to your house. They just drill a hole into the ground, and they're usually, like when you're looking for a house, they're usually already there. You don't have to go ahead and like start drilling a hole in the ground to get your water before you buy a house. It's usually already set up there, like 99.9% of the time. And a septic is a private sewage system only for your house. There are some special situations and exceptions that maybe there's a small development that shares a private well or a community well, and same thing with the sewer. It could be, you know, two houses. Like I have somebody who actually shares a well with her neighbor, and it could be kind of set up like that. It really just depends, but in short, that's what a well is, and that is what a septic is. Now, wells, people typically don't mind. I would think that the majority of people would be okay with well water. It's more about the septics and the septic system. However, when it comes to septics and people who don't really know what septics are, aren't familiar with using them because maybe they've just dealt with public sewer their whole lives, it's usually because number one, they don't know what it is. Number two, they don't know how to use it. Number three, they don't know the process of getting emptied or cleaned out. You'll find wells mostly in the rural areas of NEPA, like Bear Creek, and it's very common in the Pocono area and surroundings. But you will find some every now and then closer into towns. It will have both or one or the other. And the reason that people move out of PA is because when it comes to wells and septics, usually if they need to be repaired or replaced, it could get costly and people just don't want to deal with that. Number 5 is flood insurance. If a property is in a flood zone and you are financing a home with a mortgage, you are most likely going to be required to have flood insurance. And sometimes that could be the determining factor on whether someone lives here. We do have a dike and levee system in place that does protect the residents here that are closer to the Susquehanna River, and nothing crazy has ever happened, any sort of flooding since I think like the 1972 flood, let alone wanting to pay flood insurance. It's just another expense that people usually don't account for when they're looking for a home until they end up finding out before putting an offer in that, hey, this is a flood zone, you're most likely going to need to get flood insurance, and then kind of figuring out how much that flood insurance is going to be on top of their own property insurance, because that's usually not tied together. And flood insurance sometimes could get nasty. It could get up there and could put some people out of their home buying budget. So people just don't really like to deal with it at all. Number 6 is the architectural build of homes. A lot of these homes in this area are built between 75 to 100 plus years ago. And don't get me wrong, there are newer constructions and newer built homes that are not 75 to 100 plus years old, but we are not in an area where there's the majority of it is newer housing. It's going to be a lot of older homes in this area. PA is one of the very first colonies, so when you're walking through these homes, you're going to see a lot of them having older foundation, water in the basement. I'm not talking like a pool of water, but it could be damp, it could be moist, it could have a little puddle of water here and there around in the basement. Older wooden windows. Sometimes people still actively have coal and oil furnaces that are still heating their homes to this day. A little bit of sloping here and there, and paneling you'll see a lot. Number 7 is that the things to do here can get kind of boring. Now, I make a couple videos here and there about the multitude of things to do here in this area, and there are things in this area that do bring a lot of people here to do activities, and whether it's outdoor or indoor. But the reality is that people have jobs, they have kids, their kids are in sports, their kids are in other out of school activities, and people don't have enough time in the day between going to work and taking care of their kids or their pets or whatever the case is to go out and explore the area and do all these different things that maybe they didn't know about. So usually people will kind of stay to what they're familiar with, or maybe they'll get recommendations from friends and family on just things that they have done. But again, not a lot of people have went out and explored and are looking on the events calendar of the area or looking on their local town's events of what's going on and what they're doing in the area, that people will kind of say that, oh, like the things in this area get kind of repetitive and boring. And sometimes people don't know that the events are happening unless it's something like really big that's been promoted for, a little while. And number 8, taxes. Tax rates can greatly influence somebody's decision to move out of Pennsylvania. When people are moving out of Pennsylvania for the taxes reason, it's usually to find another state that offers lower income tax, property taxes, and sales tax. I will throw down some resources on the bottom so you can kind of take a look at all of the different types of tax rates in our state. Usually it'll kind of come down to the taxes, especially when people are looking for homes. Taxes can greatly affect the budget of a home buyer, especially if you're looking in places with high transfer tax like Wilkes Barre or Scranton. It can kind of deter them and be like, I don't want to, like I've had a bunch of clients be like, I don't want to live in Scranton because the taxes are too high, or I don't want to live in Wilkes Barre because the taxes are too high. So there are certain areas that do have these high taxes that people just don't want to pay, or it does affect their budget to the point where they would just rather avoid the area and live on the outskirts of these areas. So these are 8 things and 8 reasons on why you probably should not move to PA or the Northeast region of Pennsylvania. Because you could probably be like my clients and move here and say, hey, don't really like the area. It's not really living up to or matching my lifestyle that I thought it was going to be, or I'm moving out of the area because I just can't stand how cold it is. I need to retire somewhere warmer. So if any of these 8 reasons are deal breakers for you, you should probably save yourself a little bit of time and a little bit of headache and avoid moving to this area. I want you to be happy moving wherever you want to move. And if it is to this area of Northeast Pennsylvania, I would love to hear from you. Please give us a call, text, or email anytime. Our phone number and email are right there on the screen. Thanks for coming by.